Unreal Engine has something called an event dispatcher, but what even is it? Have you ever watched a tutorial before and someone suddenly creates an event dispatcher and then everything seems to be magically talking with one another? That can be confusing. When you're learning blueprints, most people start with casting to communicate between actors. But once your project gets bigger, casting everywhere can turn your blueprints into tangled mess. That's where event dispatchers come in. The easiest way to think about an event dispatcher is like a radio broadcast. One blueprint sends out a signal that something happened within that blueprint, and any other blueprint that's listening can react to it. The important part to this is that the blueprint sending the signal does not need to know who is listening. So you could just imagine an actual radio tower that broadcasts a signal. The tower doesn't need to know who owns a radio receiver. It just sends the broadcast, and anyone with a receiver tuned in to that radio station will hear it. Let's take a look at a quick example. So I have a door blueprint and I have a light blueprint. When I open the door, I want the light to turn on. And when I shut the door, I want the light to turn off. So one solution to that would be for the door to directly control the light. But then that means that the door has to know about the light that it's controlling. And if you start doing this everywhere in your project, suddenly every blueprint in your project depends on every other blueprint. So you're creating a coupling effect. So an alternate method to that is creating an event dispatcher. So that way the door can just announce that something happened. So to do that, I'll go into my door blueprint. Once you're in the blueprint, if you go over to your My Blueprint section on the left-hand side, you should see an event dispatcher section. Click the plus to create a new dispatcher. For the example, we can call this one on door opened. And I'm going to create a second one for when the door closes. So we'll call that one on door closed. So now I'll show you how to implement the dispatcher in the door blueprint. So I have an interact event from the previous video where we used blueprint interfaces. For this example, the interact event in the door is calling a flop node. So it's going to start on A and it's going to open the door. Then when you interact again, it's going to switch to B and it's going to close the door, which are functions that we've created inside of the door blueprint. So off of each of these, we're going to call our dispatcher that we made. So off of open, we will call, we can drag it into the graph and you can see all of these. What we're going to want is the call. So that way we're broadcasting the message. We'll do the same thing for closed, drag it in and get call. So now what's happening is whenever the door opens and the door closes, it's calling the event dispatcher and it's basically broadcasting a message to any other blueprint that's listening, saying, hey, I'm open or I'm closed. Now we'll set up the listener. So we'll go over to the light. Inside BP light, you can go to the event graph. We'll add a new variable. We'll call this door. And this is going to be of door. Object reference. Now we know which door to listen to. What we're going to do now to point it to the exact BP door to listen to is click this little eyeball next to our variable and set it to instance editable. I already have it in my level. You'd want to drag your light into the level. And now you see we have our door variable with none. We can click the dropper and we can click our door. So now that we've set the light up to know which door to listen to, we need to actually bind it to that event dispatcher so that way our light can listen for the broadcast. So back in the light, we'll go to begin play, we'll drag in our door reference, pull off of it, and we'll type bind to on door closed and bind to on door open. We'll run these off of the begin play. We can drag off of the event and type custom, and I'll call this handle on door open. We'll do the same thing for closed. We'll create a custom event, handle on door closed. Now what we've done is we've bound to the event dispatcher that's inside of the door that we're listening to in the level. So whenever the door sends the signal that the door has opened, it will fire this custom event that we've created, and it will do the same for close. And this will happen every time, not just on begin play. We run it on begin play to set up the bindings, so that way we are actively listening for these events in this blueprint. So now we can simply drag in our light on function that we've created when the door is opened, and our light off function that we created when the door is closed. We can compile and save that, and we'll go back in the level now. Back in the level, go in here and play. Now, when we walk up to the door and we interact with it, our light comes on. And now, when we interact with it again, it turns our light off. So the important thing to understand about this is that the door has no idea that the light exists. It's just simply broadcasting events, and the light is tuned in to that broadcast, so it now reacts to those events. So this is powerful because now multiple systems can react to the same event, which is the door opening and the door closing. So you could turn lights on, you could play sounds, you could update the user interface, you could trigger a quest, all from the same door dispatcher. And a good little comparison for this is casting would be similar to calling someone directly on the phone and speaking with them. You know who you're calling and you know who you're talking to. An event dispatcher is like making an announcement over a loudspeaker, and the people who are tuned in or paying attention are understanding what you're saying. Just to wrap up, whenever you have a situation where something happens and multiple systems might care about what happened, event dispatchers are one of your solutions in your tool belt. So if you're learning Unreal Engine concepts and you want these confusing systems explained in a way that's more friendly, consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel. I appreciate every single one of you, as always, who has been here along the journey. I can't wait to see what happens from here on. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again.